My name is Vicki Earls. I'm the reference librarian here at the Franklin Public Library. Our town of Franklin, Massachusetts began its life as the westerly section of the town of Wrentham. In 1778, citizens of West Wrentham petitioned the state to become a community of their own. Originally intended name for the town was going to be Exeter. At the time that our residents were bringing the documentation to the state, a rumor was circulating around Boston that Benjamin Franklin had been assassinated. As purely an emotional response to this news, when our citizens arrived with the paperwork, they crossed out the name of Exeter and filled in the name of Franklin. Now our town is Franklin, Massachusetts. Years later, in 1784, our town was in the process of building a new meeting house for the new town. What they were missing was a bell for their steeple. At that time, Jonathan Williams, who was the nephew of Benjamin Franklin, he was also a merchant in the town of Boston, the city of Boston, and he ran into some people that he knew from the town of Franklin who explained the story to him that this was what was happening, and he decided to approach his uncle, Benjamin Franklin, inform him that the town had bestowed this great honor upon him, and also explain that they needed a bell for their meeting house. Bell was expensive. Bell was also very important. That's how the town communicated. Was there something happening in town? Well, the bell rang, and so it was vital to a community. And so he explained this to his uncle, and Benjamin Franklin wrote back to Jonathan Williams, and his comment was, "Sense being preferable to sound, I am going to donate a library collection rather than a bell." He said it will save them the expense of a steeple. Franklin was in Paris at the time. He was a bit busy and couldn't go through the process himself of collecting books. So he actually left the decision-making up to a close friend of his named Richard Price. Richard Price was a Welsh philosopher, mathematician, polymath like Franklin, and he actually came up with a list of books what he thought appropriate for the town of Franklin. There were 116 books in the original collection. Some of them were actually donated by Richard Price of his own works, and also Benjamin Franklin's sister also suggested a book for the collection, which we fortunately still have. Now we probably have about 92 books remaining of the collection over the time. Obviously, you know, there's the same lost my library book, dog ate the library book, and that happened in 1780s as well as it does today. So the books arrived in Franklin in 1786 and became a public library circulating to all members of the community by 1790. The books arrived in Franklin in 1786. For 4 years, there was a bit of a controversy over who the books belonged to, whether it was the church or all of the town. 1790, it was voted and decided that the Benjamin Franklin donation belonged to all of the town of Franklin. They began to circulate to the members of the town of Franklin, and that created the first public library in the United States of America. In the beginning, the books didn't have an actual library building. They circulated from banks, circulated from schools. There was no actual library building until 1904. So from the Benjamin Franklin donation, the library continued to grow. An organization called the Franklin Library Association took custodial possession of the Benjamin Franklin donation from the town, but also provided funds to build the library beyond the Benjamin Franklin donation. One of the members of the Franklin Library Association was a gentleman named Joseph Gordon Ray. He was a local industrialist, he was a banker. His family, they were model citizens. They gave back to the town in many, many ways. They started a fire department. They started the water system. So when Joseph Gordon Ray passed away, his 2 daughters wanted to create a memorial to their father that he would be proud of. And because of his love of the Benjamin Franklin donation and of libraries and of the town, they decided to donate an actual library building to the town. Joseph's daughters, Lydia Ray Pierce and Annie Ray Thayer, had many friends in high places, and one of them was an artist named Henry Hammond Gallison. Gallison had close connections to the town of Franklin. His cousins were doctors in town. One of them was the Norfolk County coroner. They were all connected socially to the Ray family. So they actually hired Henry Hammond Gallison to work with the architect to design what would become the Ray Memorial Library. Gallison was born in Boston in 1850. He studied in Paris, he studied in Italy. He had recently toured Italy and fell in love with the Parthenon, which was, a temple of knowledge, temple to Athena. And so his vision was to create a temple of knowledge to be the home of the library collection and to give this amazing sense of beauty to the town. Gallison was a landscape artist. All of the landscapes in the Franklin Public Library were created by Gallison. And Gallison was a student at one time of an Italian artist named Tommaso Uglaris. Uglaris had done many large projects in the past for government buildings, but had never done an enormous mural before, which he wanted desperately to do. And when they were building Boston Public Library, he actually applied to do a mural for them and was rejected. So when his friend Henry Gallison asked him to do the mural for our library, he was like, okay, now is my opportunity to show everyone that I can do this. So this is why he created this amazing mural, which is a harvest festival. No real details about what the story is, but it went along with the neoclassic design of the architecture of the building and was what Henry Gallison asked him to do. Prior to the library becoming a town department, it was actually privately run by two different organizations. One was the Franklin Library Association, which Joseph Gordon Ray belonged to. They took care of the book collection, salaries, the day-to-day runnings of the library, and a separate organization called the Ray Memorial Association, which survived on funds left to them by the Ray sisters. They took care of the building. By 1982, a lot of their funds had run out, and the building was sadly falling into somewhat disrepair. So the town kind of came in and saved the day, and the building was officially transferred to the town in 1982, and Franklin Public Library has been a town department since then. The beautiful art doesn't end with this room. It continues out into the foyer, and in the foyer we have some landscape works by Gallison, and in addition to that, there is another what we consider a mural by Tommaso Uglaris that runs along the ceiling that are hours of the day. So it's hours of celebration, hours of rest, hours of labor. And we believe that that was done as a response to what was happening historically, which was a lot of campaigning for workers for a 8-hour workday, a 5-day work week. And it was showing you that this is how you should live. You should have hours of rest, hours of celebration, hours of labor. And so that is what we believe is the meaning to that mural. The foyer is actually called Memorial Hall. And the original intention for the design of Memorial Hall was portraits. So there was supposed to be a portrait of the Sister Lydia, a portrait of the Sister Annie, and a portrait of the parents. And the portraits of the parents did happen. So there is a portrait of Joseph and Emily Ray, and the portrait was painted from a photograph with their pet, with their dog, and that was painted by a local artist named Frank Hector Tompkins. So we don't really know why the other two portraits didn't happen, but in place of that, we got some amazing landscapes by Henry Hammond Gallison. The City in the Past is the names of the paintings, and they also go with the neoclassic, basically a homage to the past that this building is. This library has actually had 2 additions since its original construction. The first was in 1989, and that added, a good number of space to our building, but we have continued to grow. The town has grown, the library has grown along with the town. So in 2017, a second edition was built, very modern, provided a lot of the light and meeting space and things that we didn't have before. This library has a lot of square footage, but not a lot of it can be used for like library business. It's beautiful, but not practical in some ways. So the 2 additions provided that practicality that the town needed, that the library needed to function as a library. So all of the different areas of the library have their own name. The room with the mural is the reading gallery because it's sort of an art gallery. The front lobby, the foyer, is actually called Memorial Hall. And another room, which is called the delivery room, is where our Benjamin Franklin books currently reside, along with some desert landscape paintings done by Henry Hammond Gallison. It was called the delivery room because at the time the library opened, the book stacks, were not open to the public. So you gave your book request to the librarian, and you waited for your book to be delivered to you in the delivery room. So the original Ray Memorial Building is made of Milford pink granite from Milford, New Hampshire. It is modeled after the Parthenon. We have like these windows around that sort of mirror the style of the Parthenon as well. Inside the building, we are working with some beautiful Spanish mahogany, marble. The sisters really spared no expense. I believe at the time it was around $250,000 that was given for the building, which should be somewhere around $8 million today. So they were very, very generous. We have amazing support from our patrons. We have generations of people using the library, coming back with their children, coming back with their children. They attend our programs. We get great feedback from our customers about the services the library provides, and obviously we're happy to see them and see how well the library is used every day. I think Benjamin Franklin would be very proud of the library that he founded if he were here today.